John here, back with another review. John here, back with another review. And today we're going to talk about a review of the 1996 sci-fi film Adrenalin, Fear the Rush. And this review here was requested by Retro Scotty. Thank you, Scotty, for the request. You know, another great guy and a great friend up here that we've collaborated on, many things, throughout the years, whether it be, live streams on his channel or my channel, live commentaries and so much more. And definitely go check out his channel. A lot of good stuff. And yeah, so again, Scotty's a great friend. And thank you, man, for the request. So today, again, we're going to talk about Adrenalin, Fear the Rush. And the plot here to the film, to keep it brief, the police, they're on a hunt for an infected killer inside a quarantine camp before a deadly virus that he carries becomes fully contagious and spreads throughout. And yeah, that's pretty much the plot here to the film. It's pretty straightforward. But let's talk about the film itself. The film here, it stars Christopher Lambert, or Lambert. Just a year before, he would play Lord Raiden in Mortal Kombat. And then, back in the day, he was in Highlander and, so much more. And you also have Natasha Henstridge. Just a year before, she would be in Species. So again, they star in the film here. And in the opening of the film, you get a narration by Natasha Henstridge about the virus outbreak, and quickly sets up the plot of the film. And you have this mutant who is on the loose and is infected. And the look of the mutant itself, I thought it was just very poorly executed. And I can appreciate practical effects and practical makeup, but the look of the creature just feels very cheap. Like they try to go for like the Hills of Eyes, wrong turn before wrong turn, kind of look and style. And, it's appreciated in concept, being practical, but it's not anything inspiring. And, throughout the movie, the creature, gives off this very, annoying shrieking noise. I don't know what they were going for there, with this mutant giving off this shrieking noise, throughout the movie. But, getting to the characters. So again, Christopher Lambert, he comes into the film around the 15-minute mark, and there's not a lot of backstory to his character. I mean, I understand, like, the movie jumps into it right away, and I can appreciate that, where a movie, quickly gets to the point and, like, jumps straight into things. But Christopher Lambert, he's just kind of brought in, and, I love Christopher Lambert, or Lambert, but his performance here is very one note. There's not a lot to his character. I thought he lacked, personality in the film. And there's no, like, standout moments for him. There's no signature Lambert laugh, like you would have his iconic laugh in, different movies and stuff like that. You don't even get that here. And the character just feels very, underwritten. Natasha Henstridge, the same thing for her. And it's weird that, just a year before, she would be in Species. And then you do this, and again, like Christopher Lambert, and I like her as an actress. They're both capable talents, but they both deliver very flat and one-note performances here. And again, it's a surprising step down considering he did Species just a year prior. And the direction doesn't help either. I mean, I didn't even know that Albert Pion directed the movie. Like, when I was looking up information, about the film while, I was watching the film and doing my research, and I'm like, Albert Pion directed this movie? And I'm like, I like Cyborg with Van Damme. That to me is a better film. But, I'm kind of jumping ahead here a little bit. But let's talk about the atmosphere and the setting to the film. And when you talk about the setting and the atmosphere to the film, I mean, the setting of the rundown city and our main characters, going through these dark and damp hallways and tunnels and, claustrophobic environments, I can get behind that. Like it made for an interesting, like environment, but at the same time, it doesn't help again, where the performances are weak. And really, when you think about it, like there's not much that happens here because it's poorly executed, because it's poorly directed. And, the performances are very one note and or lackluster. And there's large portions of the film where the characters are just wandering around these tunnels, with little happening. I mean, yes, they're in pursuit of this mutant, but there's no standout moments, and it just feels repetitive. And you even get some very stupid scenes where the mutant has a gun and shoots Christopher Lambert multiple times throughout the movie. Like there's one moment where he's shot in the hand. Later on, he's shot in the leg. And then later on, he's shot in the shoulder. And then, like, of course, at the end, he would die. And maybe I shouldn't have spoiled that here. But, yeah, I mean, so that happens in the film. And as far as, like, the action goes, again, there's no excitement there. There's no urgency despite the escalation and the plot. There's no real sense of danger, even though again they're in pursuit of this mutant, but there's nothing that really happens that's eventful. The direction by Arapian, it feels both monotone and chaotic, if that makes sense. And again, I like Arapian. Van Damme Cyborg. I'd rather watch that. I'd rather, to me, that has more coherence than this movie. And, it, and I mean, even I understand like some people may not like that film, and, I've heard Cyborg has been labeled as Van Damme's worst, but I'd rather watch that. To me, that's more, that has more energy going for it and just more meat on the bone, where this film just doesn't. But yeah, so it's a disappointing effort, and I know Abrapian has passed away, R.I.P. Abrapian, but it's a disappointing effort in his filmography. It's interesting that this movie is called Adrenalin, Fear the Rush, but ironically, it lacks adrenaline. Don't fear the rush, fear the pacing, because this movie is sluggish and there's no direction. It's directionless. And maybe for some people out there, like I think I was looking at some of the reviews on IMDb, and like some people may see this as like a guilty pleasure, or, it's so bad it's good and this and that. But I'm sorry, again, it's just, to me, it was just a disappointing film. But with all that being said, let me get to my overall thoughts on Adrenalin, Fear the Rush. And overall, Christopher Lambert and Natasha Henstridge are given very little to work with, further weighed down by Abrapian's scattered direction. And those are my overall thoughts. And if I were to rate this film on a scale of 1 to 10, for me, I'm going to give this a 3. It just wasn't for me. I thought it was just a big miss. But thank you, Scotty, again for the request. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.